Hello, my name is Valdo Lallemand. I created Happy Couples Play Together and The Vibrant Couple to liberate love through playfulness. Today, I want to continue talking about an often misunderstood and definitely controversial topic, the masculine-feminine polarity. I believe that polarity is unavoidable, and so instead of going around it, pretending it does not exist, fight it, I want to find ways to use it positively. The polarity I am talking about is divine feminine and divine masculine. The divine feminine wants love, wants expression, and the divine masculine wants freedom, wants to be an observer. Today, I want to talk about essence and shells. I want to make sure you know that I am a coach and not a therapist. I'm highly interested in trauma, but I am not interested in going into the trauma to resolve it. I am interested in creating practices in order to soften the impact of the trauma and as a result, resolving it in the future. Today, I want to talk about essence. I want to talk about the unsafe world we live in and how we create shells as a way of growing up and protecting ourselves. I want to talk about how to spot a shell. I want to talk about how to dissolve our shells. And I look forward to spending this time with you. You may remember from my last post, I presented the divine feminine and divine masculine as a river. The river has a bed, which is the masculine, and the river has a flow, that is the feminine. Neither can exist without the other. So we all have a masculine and a feminine. There is no question about it. So how does one know one's essence? I want to talk about one way that I'm adapting from David data to see where we are on that polarity. So flowers, on the feminine side, basically they open one's heart. On the masculine side, they look good, they smell good, but that's about it. So another way to look at the polarity is to look at someone opening a door for you. So if a masculine being opens a door for a feminine being, whatever gender or sexual orientation, there is something special created by that door opening. It has been redacted because these days chivalry seems to be under attack. And so on the other side, if someone opens the door for a masculine being, and I'm saying someone because it does not really matter here whether that someone is masculine or feminine, but basically is just opening the door. It could very well be a mechanical door. One of the ways I look at people is the scale between disempowering to empowering. Words that would apply to that scale would be collaboration versus coercion, would be consent versus non-consent, and would be power with versus power over. So people that would be on a -5 on the Likert scale would be highly toxic people. The statistics show that about 5% of the male population are the one raping others, and that is enough to create a highly unsafe world. The belief I have is that when we are unsafe, it is very difficult to grow. And to be able to grow and flourish, one needs to feel safe. How do we do that? We create shells. So shells could be masculine, could be feminine. They have lots of different shapes. They protect us well, but they are clunky and heavy. And in many ways, it's like trading freedom for safety. And by the way, that armor is available on Amazon.com for $890 should you be interested. I would love to guide you through a quiz. Quiz number 1. Is this Jeep A, feminine, B, neutral, or C, masculine? Quiz number 2. Is this Jeep A, feminine, B, neutral, or C, masculine? And quiz number 3. Are these signs of shells? A, absolutely. B, not necessarily. C, I plead the fifth. So for anyone choosing C, I fully understand, because these days polarity is very much under attack. And I would fully understand your not wanting to comment. I am personally choosing to comment because polarity is part of my purpose of liberating love through playfulness, of having people get along better with each other, especially in couples and intimate situations. So the correct answer is B. Not necessarily. Partly is that shells are developmental. If the person wanting a pink Jeep with eyelashes or lifted truck is in the ego building phase of their life, like children are, it could be very natural that this is just part of their development, not a shell. So, after this very embarrassing stereotyping of gender, moving on. So, actually, I'm going to dig myself an even deeper grave. I want to bring to you some of the work of Dr. Keith Witt. And so he says that there are 2 roles for men, and I'm going to present to you these rules on the continuum masculine to feminine, and on the other axis, I'm going to go from me to we. Keith Witt, coming back to him, says that the 2 rules for a man are 1, don't be a dick, and 2, don't be a pussy. And he continues and says there are 2 rules for women. 1, don't be a bitch, and 2, don't be a doormat. Hey Valdo, would you have any more politically correct way of showing that 4 up? Okay, how about this? You know, I believe there is something missing, but I do agree that sometimes being politically correct has value. So let's continue with the politically correct version of our 4 up. So how are these 4 types of personalities created? And by now I'm assuming that you somehow sense that I'm going to describe these personalities as shells, because it's not our essence to be a jerk or a wimp, or a pushover, or a hard ass. These are often created in what I call never again moments, in which we are hurt or overwhelmed to the point we can no longer function. From these never again moment, we create a shell in which we decide, I will never be dominated again. If we do so, on the masculine side, we become a jerk. And on the feminine side, we become a hard ass. And then if we decide, I will never be like them, then we become a wimp, or we become a pushover. Shells are very important for protection, but we lose freedom. We lose access to very important human qualities. So now, how do we spot a shell? I believe it's important to come back to essence. And in this conversation, I'm going to make an assumption that we're looking for men with a masculine essence and women with a feminine essence. I am doing this assumption because I work primarily with cisgendered heterosexual people. If you have a different gender definition or sexual orientation, please translate and bear with us because this conversation also applies to you. So, for a man with a masculine essence, the masculine essence is of strength, is of protection, is to be the imperturbable bedrock of the river in which the feminine flows, is to provide vision, direction, and to provide humor, to just learn to accept that life never goes the way we would love it to be. So now, let's take a look at a feminine shell for a man. As I'm describing these, pay attention that some of these are wonderful qualities that are good to see in a man. These are more feminine qualities. The key here is not so much that they are feminine, but more that they are overdone, over-expressed, overstressed. That man would be what Robert Glover describes as a Mr. Nice Guy. And basically, that would have a hard time getting in position. They would have a hard time stating what he wants and what he stands for. I am pretty sure that this either resonates partly in you or partly in some men that you know. So now let's take a look at the feminine equivalent. And again, I'm making the assumption I'm talking with women who have a feminine essence. Not all women do. According to my teacher David Data, about 80% of women have a feminine essence, about 10% have a neutral essence, and about 10% have a more masculine essence. So here I am talking about the 80% that have more of a feminine essence. You know, Valdo, this is boring. Thanks for calling me on that. I believe that in long-term committed relationships, what we yearn for is to understand our armors so we can lay them, we can basically disrobe so we can be more present and intimate with each other. This video is simply to lay the groundwork, and I know it's a painful, boring masculine structure / lecture, and yes, I do agree with you, and so I promise in the future I will do a lot more playful videos on how to dissolve playfully and in partnership those shells that basically plague us in intimacy. So, moving on with the lecture. So feminine qualities are radiance, nurturing, adaptability, that is the feminine responsiveness, warmth, and welcoming. So now let's take a look at a woman with a feminine essence taking on a masculine shell. So a woman could be making a judgment, could be making a decision, could be choosing a direction because she is acting from her masculine. Or, in the case of a shell, the judgment would feel harsh, would feel more critical with not necessarily a reason for it. There would be an angular nature. We were talking earlier about the hard ass. There is something somehow I would qualify as, unnerving, frustrating, that somehow rubs us the wrong way. So coming back to David Data's question about how is it for you when someone opens a door for you? And so if you are a woman, or if you take a look at a woman that you believe has a feminine essence, and she gets upset when a man or a person with a masculine essence opens the door for her, then it is very likely that you have a sign of a shell. So this leads to our last point for today, is how to dissolve shell. Before we engage in that exploration, I want to share with you that we have lots of role models of shells. On the harder side, we have lots of heroes. And actually, some are masculine, some are feminine. This is very much a hero culture we live in. And then we also have lots of role models in movies of wimps and pushovers. We have those because drama sells. We have very few models of men demonstrating purely their masculine essence. The key here, and I'm going to talk personally, when I'm in my masculine essence, there is something strengthening, there is something rejuvenating. When I'm in my feminine, although I have lots of feminine qualities, I'm in touch with my intuitions, I am in touch with my feelings, I know how to relate to others. Even though these are wonderful feminine qualities, I'm often overdoing them, and in some ways this is because I've abdicated the work it does to be in my masculine essence. And I like to call that my collapsed masculine. When I am in my collapsed masculine, it could be wonderful sunny 72 Fahrenheit. I could have a harem of many adoring women. I feel like shit inside. When I'm in my masculine essence, there is something uncanny. I'm happy. However the temperature is, however challenging my day is, there is something in which I feel settled and grounded. If I take a look at woman with a feminine essence, I would be assuming, and partly is because that's what I'm hearing from my feminine friends and clients, is that when they are in their masculine shell, they're often more in their collapsed feminine. So, before anyone argues with me, I am very much in agreement that we live in a world in which the feminine has been abused and disrespected for centuries or even millennium. This is not my fight. My fight is with what we have right now, with a society, our culture, is to relearn to use and create polarity positively. So, how do we dissolve shells? The belief I have is it a combination of both increasing our essence and decreasing the shell. Unless you are a highly trained therapist or a highly trained polarity coach, I would invite you to just look at your own shells. Looking at someone else's shells could really backfire, because this is part of the safety they have created for themselves in the world. Personally, to increase my essence, I spend time in men's groups. I spend time with masculine friends. We challenge each other to become better men, to become more on purpose. And I also work on some of my shells. For a long time, I was a Mr. Nice Guy. For example, until fairly recently, if someone had challenged me to the fight, I would have found a way to talk them through to dissipate the conflict with words versus fists. So, how do I dissolve that shell? Well, 9 months ago, I joined a boxing gym, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And so, of course, some of my intent was to learn to feel my anger, was to learn to express my anger, in a way that would be kinesthetic and, embodied. I've learned a lot more. I've learned to be more responsive, the clunkiness of the armor, and also I've learned to receive blows. You may remember that one of the major origins of shells are never again moments. I am personally very grateful for my protective shells that has kept me safe all over the years of being a Mr. Nice Guy. Thanks, Mr. Nice Guy. Thank you. If this video inspired you to better understand and create more polarity in your life, I invite you to like, the button below this video, and subscribe so that you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. And share with all your friends who you believe would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.